Every Monday morning, at exactly 9 o'clock, I sent my parents $700 like a survival reflex. As if as long as I kept paying, we were still a family. But last week, they didn't show up to my daughter's birthday. No phone call. No card. Just an icy emptiness sitting on the table covered in balloons that hadn't even begun to sag. When I called to ask why, my father's voice came through. Dry, flat, and emotionless. That child means nothing to us. I froze. My breath tangled. My palms slick with sweat. No arguing. No crying. I simply unlocked my phone and started deleting every payment. Every financial chain I had tied myself to. 40 minutes later, the screen lit up. A message. And from that moment, everything began to change. Before I tell you the rest, tell me, where are you watching from? And if you've ever had to swallow your pride just to hold on to something called family, leave the number 1. Stay with me, because the sentence that froze me that day was only the beginning. I used to believe that if I just gave enough, they would finally see me. The fluorescent lights in the hospital break room flickered softly as I removed my mask, the smell of disinfectant still clinging to my wrists. The clock on the wall inched toward 9 o'clock in the morning. Exactly like last week. Exactly like the past 8 months. I unlocked my phone. The banking app appeared like an old ritual. $700 to Hugh Lane. My finger slid down to the confirm button almost out of instinct. No. Thank you. No call. Just the quiet. I kept telling myself, was peace. I always convinced myself that if I kept them happy, I would still have parents. Out in the hallway, a patient coughed sharply. I took a long breath, tightened my coat, and stepped out. 8 hours of an overnight shift didn't exhaust me as much as the feeling of having to pay to be called a daughter. When I arrived home, Lucy was spreading colored paper across the living room floor, her hair a tangled mess, her eyes still watery from sleepiness. Mommy, did Nana call today? Her little voice was so bright it stopped something in my chest. I sat beside her, smoothing her soft hair. Maybe they're busy. Honey, let me check again. Okay? Lucy nodded, believing immediately. Children always believe, and that belief squeezed my chest every single morning. On the wall hung drawings of me and her grandparents standing side by side. Round, happy smiles that had never existed anywhere except on paper. I looked at them like looking at alternate versions of a family I kept hoping to have. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Don't forget to buy groceries this week. Your father's medicine is running out. No checking on us. Not a single word about Lucy. Just a list of demands. As if I were some household staff they were paying, when in reality, I was the one paying them. Every week I tried to find a reason to believe they would soften. That someday they would knock on my door, hug Lucy, and ask how much she had grown. But this month was like last month, and last month was like the one before it. Cedar Creek kept on raining, and I kept on sending money. I had grown used to being spoken to with coldness. But Lucy didn't deserve that. One morning, I accidentally overheard Lucy talking to her 2 dolls. Grandma will come. Mommy said so. One doll answered in the little voice Lucy invented. Maybe next time. I stood behind the door frame, my hand gripping the wood, my heart sinking deeper than any overnight shift ever could. I thought, if they loved her even a little, they would be here by now. But they never came. Not even though they lived only 30 minutes away. And then, on a completely ordinary morning, my phone rang. Not my parents, but someone who would drag the truth straight into the light. Do you know, some wounds in a family don't begin with a single sentence, but with the years you spend pretending you're not hurting. I was 12 when I first understood. In this house, my place would never be at the center. That evening, The Lane kitchen was lit only by a weak yellow bulb, casting a dull glow over the plate of cold noodles in front of me. My parents were arguing in the living room, the clink of a glass hitting the table, my mother's exhausted sigh, my father's rough voice as he slammed his keys down. I sat still, silent, holding my breath as if even the sound of me breathing could make them angrier. When the house finally quieted, my mother walked in, her eyes tired but her tone still sharp. "Marissa, wash the dishes yourself. No one here has time to take care of every meal for you." I nodded. Cold water numbed my hands. The smell of cheap soap stung my nose. And as I bent over the sink, I understood something. From this point on, I would have to take care of myself. Owen, my younger brother. I never heard words like that. Every time, he whimpered. Dad rushed over. Every time he scored low, Mom found an excuse. And me. Why do you always cause trouble? A girl like you. Who could possibly tolerate that? Those sentences followed me into sleep. Dad loved telling relatives I was stubborn like nobody knows who. Mom loved comparing me to the Johnsons' daughter down the street. Gentle, obedient, and well-behaved. What I lacked wasn't obedience. It was being seen. When I was 22, still working as a trainee nurse, my mother sprained her ankle. The hospital bill was $200. Dad called me at 2 a.m, his voice like an order. "Transfer it now. Don't let your mother lie there waiting." I did it immediately. And when Mom texted "thank you," just those 2 words, my heart sank. For the first time in years, I felt like I mattered. Not because they loved me, but because they needed me. I didn't know back then. I had just unlocked a trap with no way out. Owen grew into a gentle, easygoing man. But like me, he was shaped by this family in his own distorted way. He didn't talk much, especially about how unfairly our parents treated us. Once he said, "You know how they are. Arguing won't change anything." I looked at him and saw the exhaustion in his eyes. The same exhaustion I had when I was 16. But we didn't hug. We didn't share. This family never taught us how to be close. Only how to endure next to each other. I left home at 18. But the old sentences followed me all the way into adulthood. Whenever Dad called, his voice still carried that familiar demanding tone. "Did you remember your mother's medicine money? We're short this month. Send it first." Don't make me repeat myself. I sent it. Week after week. So often that transferring money became a reflex. Like breathing. I didn't buy new clothes. I picked up extra shifts. I told Lucy, "Grandma and Grandpa are very busy. They'll come tomorrow." Even though I knew they would never come. The day Lucy asked, "Mom, why don't Grandma and Grandpa like me?" I froze. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat alone in the dark living room. The streetlights of Cedar Creek bled through the curtains, casting blurred shadows across the floor. In that darkness, I remembered something my mother told me when I was 15. Love in this house has to be deserved. No one has time to keep loving a child who disappoints them. I didn't know that sentence would come back again. But this time, aimed at my own daughter. There are moments in life when no one shouts at you, no one knocks you down, and yet your heart still fractures like glass. The little house in Cedar Creek glowed in warm, honey-colored sunlight. Marissa tied balloon strings, set the table, turned on children's music trying to let laughter drown out everything else. Lucy ran in circles, her pink tulip dress flaring with every step, her hair braided into a soft arch. "Mommy, will Grandma and Grandpa think I look pretty?" Marissa smiled, gently squeezing her daughter's shoulder. "You're the prettiest today." Lucy. Inside, a sigh stayed trapped. Neighbors arrived, the smell of birthday cake drifting through the air. Lucy kept leaning over the fence, eyes bright, as if searching for something magical. "Mommy, are Grandma and Grandpa almost here?" Marissa paused for half a heartbeat. "They're probably on their way. Sweetheart, let's start playing first." Lucy nodded, believing immediately. Children always believe. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The candles on the cake began to soften, melting into curved trails of wax. Children's laughter thinned out as parents came to pick them up one by one. Lucy kept trying to hold her smile, but her small hands twisted together. Did they get lost? Mommy. Marissa looked at her daughter, the scene blurring for a moment. Maybe they're busy today, sweetheart. But in her heart, she had known the answer since that morning. Lucy sat on the wooden step of the porch, her feet swinging, her eyes fixed on the long, empty stretch of road. A cupcake in her hand, the frosting tilting to one side from the sun. Behind her, the balloons swayed gently in the breeze, as if they too were waiting for someone. Lucy whispered, "Maybe they forgot about me." The question was soft as air, but it stabbed into Marissa's heart like a silent blade. When Lucy went inside to wash her hands, Marissa stood in the kitchen, trying to steady her breath. Her phone buzzed. Maybe they're texting an apology, she thought. A faint spark of hope fluttered inside her chest. The message illuminated the screen. "Happy birthday to Lucy." No period. No apology. No promise. Nothing. Marissa leaned against the fridge, her hand gripping the phone tightly. The kitchen grew unbearably quiet, the kind of quiet where you can hear your own heart dropping. That night, the sound of the clock was louder than my own heartbeat. Cedar Creek sank into a deep midnight blue. Inside the house, everything was so quiet Marissa could hear the soft hum of the fridge, the tiny droplets falling from the faucet, and Lucy's gentle breathing from the next room. Marissa sat at the kitchen table, a glass of water still cold in her hand. She looked at the bits of pink ribbon left on the floor. Traces of a birthday party Lucy had tried her hardest to enjoy, even though someone never showed up. The pale yellow bulb above her flickered once. Marissa raised a hand to her temple. She knew. She couldn't keep living with this feeling of begging to be loved. Marissa opened her laptop. Blue light washed across her tired face. The banking screen displayed a long list. Every Monday, 9 o'clock in the morning. 8 straight months. Not a single thank you. Her fingers moved slowly, as if brushing against old wounds. Each payment line was a moment she had told herself. Maybe this time they'll love me more. Maybe they'll come to Lucy's birthday. Maybe things will be different. No. They would never be different. A drop fell onto the keyboard. Marissa couldn't tell whether it was cold water or a tear. She took a long breath, placed her hand on the mouse, clicked cancel automatic transfer. A tiny click, but in her chest, it felt like an entire wall collapsing. She deleted the second line, then the third. Each deletion was a different kind of exhale. Click. Hollow. Click. Sharp. Click. Freedom. At the final entry, Monday transfer, $700. Marissa's hand paused. She remembered Lucy sitting on the porch steps, eyes wide with hope. Then she remembered Margaret's forward message. Marissa hit cancel. She whispered, "It's done." But at that exact moment, her phone vibrated. The screen lit up. Dad. Richard Lane. For the first time in many months, Marissa didn't hesitate. She answered. "Marissa, what the hell are you doing?" Richard's voice was full of anger. No concern. Not a single breath spared for Lucy. Marissa kept her tone steady. "I'm not sending money anymore." Silence. A full beat. A beat long enough for cold to slip down her spine. "Have you lost your damn mind?" You know, we depend on that. Marissa closed her eyes. I don't owe you anything anymore. She heard Richard let out a bitter laugh. Sharp, mocking, soaked in contempt. He lowered his voice, but not with softness. What did we ever do to deserve being treated like this? Marissa replied. She waited all afternoon. You didn't come. No explanation. No apology. Silence stretched across the phone line. Then Richard said the words Marissa would remember for the rest of her life. That child means nothing to me. No raised voice. No anger. Just a cold, clean sentence. Like a nail driven into the heart. The kitchen seemed to dim. Marissa leaned against the wall, her hand trembling. Lucy, that gentle little girl, did not deserve to hear that. Did not deserve to be denied her existence. And Marissa understood. This was no longer about money. This was a battle to protect her daughter. The first message of the morning wasn't an apology. It was a declaration of war. Sunlight hadn't even reached the room in Cedar Creek when Marissa's phone buzzed nonstop on the nightstand. She grabbed it out of reflex. Lucy was still asleep, her breathing steady, her face peaceful, untouched by the cruelty of adults. The screen displayed a notification. Margaret Lane just went live. Then another. You were tagged in a video. Marissa's chest tightened. Cold spreading, one beat at a time. No one live-streamed on a Sunday morning unless they were trying to build a narrative. Marissa opened the video. The audio came on with perfectly timed, fake sobbing. On the screen, Margaret sat on the sofa, holding a tissue like an old stage prop. Richard sat beside her. His face darkened as if he were the victim of the entire world. We, have tried our best to be good parents. But Marissa, she's making up lies to destroy this family. Margaret's voice cracked in the exact place, at the exact second, like she was performing for the church ladies' brunch. Richard cut in. She sent money because she wanted to, not because we asked. Marissa tightened her grip on the phone. That line, the complete reversal of truth, twisted her stomach. Margaret dabbed at tears that never fell, and she accused us of skipping Lucy's birthday. That is the cruelest thing a child could invent. Marissa inhaled deeply, trying to steady her hands. Not because they were lying, but because they didn't hesitate for even a moment. Richard lifted a photo to the camera. Lucy in her pink tulip dress, smiling brightly, her hair braided in the style Marissa had spent the entire morning creating. This child, he paused, looking straight into the lens. His mouth curved into a thin smile. Means nothing to us. Marissa couldn't breathe. Viewers couldn't breathe. In that moment, their cruelty was broadcast publicly, replayed in real time before hundreds of people watching live. The kitchen inside Marissa's heart darkened another shade. Comments began flooding under the video. What on earth is going on? Who talks like that about a 6-year-old? Why are they live streaming family drama? Oh God, who's right? Who's wrong? Then another comment. If their daughter is as awful as they claim, why do they need to live stream it? Marissa muted the sound but didn't close the video. She watched not to torture herself, but because she needed to see clearly. Her parents were no longer parents. They were two people dragging themselves toward their own ruin. Lucy walked out of her room, rubbing her eyes. Mommy, what are you watching? Marissa instantly locked the screen. Nothing. Sweetheart, go brush your teeth. Lucy believed her immediately, and that made Marissa's heart twist all over again. Her phone vibrated again. Owen. Marissa. Don't post anything. Don't respond. Let them sink in the trap they built themselves. A minute later. I'm on my way. Stop watching the live stream. Marissa set the phone on the table, her hand trembling slightly. She didn't cry. Didn't scream. Didn't react. She just sat there, in a room too quiet, listening to silence stretch into something sharp like wire. Another notification popped up. Lauren Pike shared the live stream. Lauren, Margaret's cousin, the one who always said family should protect each other. Right below it, a wave of new notifications flooded in. Shared to Cedar Creek Community Group. Shared to Lane Family Reunion Planning. Shared to Oregon Small Town Moms. The videos spread accelerated like wildfire. Marissa exhaled slowly. She knew. From here on, nothing was under their control anymore. And that was the exact moment Richard and Margaret Lane's downfall began, not because of Marissa, but because of their own words. When the noise in the park suddenly fell silent, I knew the truth was about to reveal itself. That afternoon, Willowbank Park was full of the sound of children running on the grass. Long rows of tables were lined up, tablecloths fluttering in the breeze, the smell of barbecue drifting through the golden sunlight. Everyone thought it was just another annual family gathering. No one expected it would become the day my parents were exposed before their own community. I didn't go. Elliot told me to rest. But what happened at Willowbank still found its way to me through the screen. In the middle of the field, Howard and Bernice stood among the older relatives, acting fragile, their voices trembling as if they were the victims. Bernice dabbed at the corner of her eyes with a tissue, whispering that I made everything up, that I brainwashed my child, that I wanted to keep them away from their granddaughter. The entire atmosphere began to shift. A few people nodded. Some frowned. Everyone was waiting for a spark. The static crackle of a Bluetooth speaker connecting cut through the crowd. Heads turned. Lauren, Aunt Clara's daughter, stepped out from behind the fence, holding her phone like she was carrying evidence. She spoke clearly, without needing to shout. Before Uncle Howard continues, I think everyone should hear this. She played the audio Elliot sent last night. That child does not exist to us. The sentence rang across the park like cold water thrown over everyone. No one moved. No one cleared their throat. Only the wind brushing through the treetops. A middle-aged man set his soda can down, eyes wide. A woman whispered, "Who says that about their own grandchild?" Children stopped laughing. Adults exchanged looks, as if they had just seen monsters wearing the faces of people they knew. Bernice's hands trembled. Howard tried to steady his voice, but his throat kept tightening. People nearby stepped half a pace back. That distance hurt more than any accusation. Then Gerald, the eldest cousin, stood up. Not loud, not angry. He simply looked directly at them, his voice low but steady. If the two of you can abandon an innocent child, then Willowbank has no place for you anymore. No one objected. No one defended them. Howard opened his mouth to speak, but no one wanted to hear. Bernice covered her face and turned away. They left the field between two rows of eyes that once saw them as pillars. Lauren's camera followed behind, the dry crunch of their footsteps on the gravel path sending chills through me even though I was only watching through a screen. When the video ended, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't the final chapter. The truth was only just beginning to reclaim its place. When the first light of the day swept across the kitchen table, I realized I was breathing a little easier. Sunlight from the Cedar Creek window spilled across the counter, coating the kitchen in a soft gold. Marissa poured coffee, the warmth drifting around her hands. With no phone vibrating to interrupt the morning, Lucy sat on the living room rug, hugging her stuffed rabbit, her feet swinging gently with the breeze. No demands, no tasks, just their own breathing. By noon, Marissa took Lucy out to Cedar Creek. The park carried the smell of damp grass after last night's rain, children's laughter echoing beneath the trees. Lucy held a box of chalk, ran to the brick walkway, and began drawing crooked stars. Then she wrote the word Elliot, the letters uneven, but filled with affection. Marissa smiled. This simple piece was something she once believed she would never touch. The wind flipped a strand of Lucy's hair. Marissa sat beside her, eyes following each bright chalk line glowing under the sun. She had never been familiar with silence that didn't come with fear. No bills she had to pay for someone else. No sharp-edged voice from Bernice. No nights counting every dollar just to keep peace. Now silence meant boundaries had held firm. A choice made not to fight, but to protect. Elliot appeared with a small paper bag and a rare smile. "You look a lot lighter," he said. Marissa laughed. "So do you." They sat on the wooden bench. Lucy ran in circles, waving chalk like a magic wand. Elliot set a muffin box on the stone table. A small note, taped to the outside. "For the bravest sister I know." No need for many words. True family is often quiet, but full. When they returned home, a pale cream envelope sat in the mailbox. The handwriting was old and shaky. "You chose love. They chose pride. And one day, you'll see how this decision saves both you and your daughter." Marissa folded the letter, placing it in the drawer she kept for things meant to stay a long time. "I once believed freedom was a luxury, but it turns out it only required one choice, made with enough finality." If you're still here listening, maybe this story has reached the exact place you once hid very carefully. That night, as I stood outside Lucy's bedroom door, the soft yellow light resting on her face, I understood that peace never arrives on its own. It is built from the kind of pain that forces you to choose. Lucy hugged her stuffed rabbit, her breathing steady, her hair falling across the pillow like the first lines of a new page. I looked at her and realized I no longer carried that heaviness. No more waiting for a phone call. No more fixing things that were never mine to fix. The future for the two of us for the first time no longer depended on anyone but ourselves. I once thought leaving family was a form of betrayal, but today, I understand. Sometimes, it's the only way to protect the most decent part of who you are. No one has the right to take away the peace you paid so much to reclaim. No one has the right to define you. No one has the right to decide the worth of your child. Family is not a place you shrink yourself to fit. It's the place you are seen even when you're tired, quiet, or imperfect. Have you ever had to leave a relationship, even a family one, just to keep yourself whole? 2. I invite you to share. If you have, tell me one thing you let go of, and what you found again after that. Please like and subscribe so I can share many more meaningful and beautiful stories with you. See you in the next story.